Imagine you are walking along a riverbank thousands of years ago. The sun is high, the water is clear. And then you see it. A small, shining piece of metal sitting on the ground. You pick it up. It does not rust. It does not break. It bends in your hand like soft clay. It is heavy, and it is beautiful. You have never seen anything like it. You do not know it yet. But that little piece of metal will change everything. It will build temples. It will start wars. It will move oceans of people across the earth. It will make kings powerful and make poor men dream of a better life. Entire civilizations will rise and fall because of it. That metal is gold, and this is its story. Hi, and welcome to Daily English Origins. Are you learning English? Great. Let's learn English with a very interesting story. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. Let's get started. Gold is one of the oldest and most powerful symbols in human history. A symbol means something that stands for a bigger idea. Gold is not just a metal, it is a symbol of beauty, power, trust, and wealth. Wealth means having a lot of money or valuable things. For thousands of years, people all over the world, from Africa to Asia to the Americas, looked at gold and felt the same thing. They felt that it was special, that it was different from everything else. But why? Why gold? Why not iron? Why not copper? The answer is simple, and it is beautiful. Gold does not change. It does not rust like iron. It does not turn green like copper. You can leave a piece of gold in the ground for 5,000 years, and when you dig it up, it still shines. It is still perfect. To ancient people, something that never changed must have come from the gods. And so, gold became divine. Divine means connected to God or a higher power. That single idea, that gold was divine, shaped the entire history of the world. Nobody knows exactly when humans first found gold. But scientists and historians believe it happened very early, perhaps 10,000 years ago or more. A historian is a person who studies the past. The first gold was probably found in rivers and streams. This is called placer gold. Placer gold is small pieces of gold that break off from rocks and wash into rivers over thousands of years. Early humans did not need tools to find it. They just walked along the water and looked down. Gold is easy to recognize. Even a child can see it. It is bright yellow, and it catches the light. In a world that was mostly brown and gray, dirt, rocks, dry grass, a piece of gold was impossible to miss. Early humans used gold to make jewelry and decorations. Jewelry means beautiful objects you wear on your body, like rings and necklaces. The oldest gold jewelry ever found is from Bulgaria in Eastern Europe. It is about 6,500 years old. That means people were making beautiful gold objects before the pyramids of Egypt were even built. From the very beginning, gold was not practical. You cannot eat it. You cannot build a house with it. You cannot use it as a weapon. But humans loved it anyway. And that love never went away. No civilization in the ancient world loved gold more than Egypt. Egypt loved gold so deeply, so completely, that it became part of their religion, their art, and their identity. Identity means who you are, your values, your culture, your beliefs. The ancient Egyptians called gold Nebu. They believed it was the flesh of the sun god Ra. Ra was the most powerful god in the Egyptian religion. If gold was the body of a god, then gold itself was holy. Holy means sacred, deeply connected to God or a higher power. The pharaohs, the kings of Egypt, used gold to show their divine power. A pharaoh was not just a king. A pharaoh was believed to be a living god, and a living god needed gold. Lots of it. Gold covered the walls and pillars of their temples. Their furniture was decorated with gold. Their coffins, the boxes used to bury the dead, were made of solid gold. When archaeologists opened the tomb of Tutankhamun in 1922, they found thousands of gold objects inside. Archaeologists are scientists who study ancient cultures by digging up objects from the ground. The world was amazed. But where did all this gold come from? Egypt was lucky. The land of Nubia, to the south of Egypt, in what is now Sudan, was full of gold mines. A mine is a hole dug deep into the earth to take out valuable materials. The Egyptians controlled Nubia for centuries. They used enslaved people and prisoners of war to dig the gold from the ground. The work was brutal. Brutal means extremely hard and cruel. Many people died in those mines. But the gold kept coming, and Egypt kept growing richer and more powerful. Egypt was not alone. Across the ancient world, other great civilizations also discovered gold and used it to build their power. In Mesopotamia, the land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, in what is now Iraq, the ancient Sumerians and Babylonians used gold for their temples and royal palaces. Mesopotamia is often called the cradle of civilization. The cradle is where a baby sleeps, so this phrase means the birthplace of civilization. The kings of Mesopotamia decorated their crowns with gold and traded gold objects with distant lands. Trade means exchanging goods, giving something to get something back. Gold became one of the first international trade goods. International means between different nations or peoples. In ancient Persia, what is now Iran, the great King Cyrus and later Darius the Great built a vast empire. Vast means extremely large. Their empire stretched from Egypt to India. They collected gold as tribute from the peoples they controlled. Tribute is a payment made to a powerful ruler as a sign of respect or fear. The Persian king Darius created one of the world's first true gold coins. A coin is a small, flat piece of metal used as money. These coins were called darics, named after Darius himself. For the first time, gold was not just jewelry or decoration. It was money. And that changed everything. The ancient Greeks admired gold deeply. They told stories about it. In one famous legend, King Midas was given the power to turn everything he touched into gold. At first, Midas was happy. He was rich beyond imagination. But then he touched his food. It turned to gold. He touched his daughter. It turned to gold. The story teaches a powerful lesson. Too much desire for gold can destroy what you love most. But Greek myths were not the only important story. Real history was just as dramatic. In 336 BC, a young man named Alexander became king of Macedonia, a small kingdom in northern Greece. He was only 20 years old. But Alexander was not an ordinary young man. He was brilliant, fearless, and deeply ambitious. Ambitious means having a strong desire to achieve great things. Alexander went to war. He did not stop. He marched his army east, through Persia, through Egypt, through Central Asia, all the way to India. He conquered an enormous empire in just 13 years. Conquered means to take control of a place through military force. And everywhere he went, Alexander found gold. The Persian Empire was full of it. When Alexander captured the city of Persepolis, the great capital of Persia, he found treasuries containing thousands of tons of gold and silver. A treasury is a place where valuable things, especially money, are kept. Alexander used that gold to pay his soldiers, build cities, and fund his next campaigns. A campaign is a series of military operations with a specific goal. Gold was not just beautiful to Alexander. It was fuel. It powered his conquests. When Alexander died in 323 BC, at just 32 years old, he had spread Greek culture across an enormous part of the world. This period is called the Hellenistic Age, the age of Greek influence, and gold traveled with it. After Greece, the next great power was Rome. The Roman Empire eventually controlled most of Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. It was one of the largest empires in history. Rome understood something important. Gold meant stability. Stability means the quality of being steady, reliable, and not easily changed. If your money is made of gold, people trust it. If people trust money, they trade. If they trade, the economy grows. An economy is the system of making, buying, and selling goods and services in a country. The Romans created a powerful gold coin called the aureus. The word aureus comes from the Latin word for gold, aurum. That is also where we get the modern chemical symbol for gold, a U. The aureus was used across the entire Roman Empire for hundreds of years. Rome also conquered lands specifically to get more gold. The gold mines of Spain were especially important. Thousands of enslaved workers dug deep tunnels in the mountains of Hispania, what is now Spain and Portugal. The gold they found funded Roman armies and Roman cities. At the height of the Roman Empire, gold moved freely through trade networks, stretching from Britain in the north to India in the east. A trade network is a connected system of roads, sea routes, and merchants that allows goods to move from one place to another. Gold was the common language of this enormous world. But Rome also showed the world something frightening. When the empire began to weaken, its leaders made a terrible decision. They started to mix the gold in their coins with cheaper metals like copper. They put less gold in each coin, but kept the same value on paper. This is called debasement, reducing the quality or value of something. Debasement of the currency made people lose trust in Roman money. Prices went up, trade slowed down, the economy struggled. It was one of the early signs that the great empire was starting to fall. Long before the internet, before airplanes, before even printing, there was the Silk Road. The Silk Road was not one single road. It was a giant network of trade routes. paths used for buying and selling, that connected China in the east with the Mediterranean world in the west. It stretched over 7,000 miles. Merchants traveled these routes for centuries. A merchant is a person who buys and sells goods for a living. They carried silk from China, spices from India, glass from Rome, and cotton from Egypt. But the one thing that was always valuable, everywhere, the one thing that every culture accepted, was gold. Gold was the universal currency of the Silk Road. Universal means something accepted or understood by everyone. A merchant from China could walk into a market in Persia, offer gold, and buy what he needed. No translator was needed. Gold spoke every language. Gold also traveled by sea. Arab traders sailed across the Indian Ocean, connecting East Africa, Arabia, India, and Southeast Asia in a great web of commerce. Commerce means the buying and selling of goods, especially on a large scale. Gold from the mines of West Africa and East Africa moved north and east through these networks. The city of Timbuktu, in the West African kingdom of Mali, became one of the richest cities in the world because it controlled the flow of gold across the Sahara Desert. We will hear much more about this later in our story. The Silk Road made one thing very clear. Gold was not just a local treasure. It was a global force. Global means affecting the whole world. And the world was just beginning to feel its full power. After the fall of Rome in 476 AD, Europe entered a long period of instability. Instability means a lack of order and safety. Things are unpredictable and often dangerous. Trade slowed. Cities shrank. The great Roman roads fell into disrepair. But in another part of the world, a new civilization was rising fast. In the 7th century, the religion of Islam spread rapidly across the Middle East, North Africa, and Central Asia. With it came a new era of learning, science, and trade. This period, from roughly 800 AD to 1300 AD, is called the Islamic Golden Age, and gold was at the center of it. Islamic empires like the Abbasid Caliphate, based in Baghdad, created vast trade networks. Baghdad became one of the richest and most educated cities on earth. Scholars, people who study and learn deeply, came from across the world to study mathematics, astronomy, medicine, and philosophy there. And merchants brought gold from every direction. But no story from this era is more dramatic than the story of Mansa Musa. Mansa Musa was the emperor of the Mali Empire in West Africa. He ruled from around 1312 to 1337 AD. The Mali Empire controlled the gold and salt trade across the Sahara Desert. Salt was enormously valuable in the ancient world. It preserved food and was essential for survival. Preserved means kept fresh and safe from spoiling. Historians and economists, people who study money and trade, believe Mansa Musa may have been the richest person who has ever lived. At the height of his power, his empire produced nearly half of all the gold in the entire world. In 1324, Mansa Musa made a pilgrimage to Mecca. A pilgrimage is a long journey to a holy place for religious reasons. He traveled with an army of 60,000 people and 12,000 enslaved servants. He brought 80 camels, each carrying 300 pounds of gold dust. And everywhere he stopped, Cairo, Arabia, he gave gold away. He was so generous that he actually caused inflation in Egypt. Inflation happens when too much money enters an economy and prices rise sharply. The Egyptian economy took over a decade to recover. One man, one journey, so much gold that he accidentally damaged the economy of an entire country. That is the power of gold. While the Islamic world flourished, Europe was slowly recovering. And Europe wanted gold too. The Crusades were a series of religious wars fought between Christian kingdoms of Europe and Muslim powers controlling the Holy Land, the region around Jerusalem, which is sacred to Christians, Muslims, and Jews. The Crusades began in 1096 and continued for nearly 200 years. Religion was the public reason for the Crusades. But gold and trade were also powerful motivations. A motivation is the reason why someone does something. European knights and kings had heard stories of the wealth of the East, the spices, the silks, the gold. Controlling Jerusalem meant controlling trade routes. Controlling trade routes meant controlling money. The Crusades ultimately failed to permanently hold the Holy Land. But they had an unexpected consequence. A consequence is a result, something that happens because of something else. European armies came into deep contact with Islamic and Byzantine civilization. The Eastern Roman Empire, based in Constantinople. They saw advanced medicine, advanced mathematics, and advanced trade systems. They brought these ideas back to Europe. And crucially, they brought back a hunger for Eastern goods, spices, silk, and gold. It would eventually push European explorers to sail to the ends of the earth, to find new sources of wealth. The Crusades planted a seed. That seed would grow into the Age of Exploration. One of the most dramatic and tragic chapters in the entire story of gold. By the 1400s, Europe was changing fast. The Italian city-states became rich through trade with the East. A city-state is a city that rules itself like an independent country. Wealthy merchants and bankers were funding art, science, and exploration. But there was a problem. The old Silk Road land routes to Asia were increasingly blocked and dangerous. The Ottoman Empire, a powerful Muslim empire based in Constantinople, controlled key passages. European traders needed a new route to the east. A route is a path from one place to another. Portugal was the first to act. Portuguese explorers sailed south along the coast of Africa, looking for a sea route to India and its spices. In 1488, Bartolomeu Diaz rounded the southern tip of Africa, the Cape of Good Hope. 10 years later, Vasco da Gama sailed all the way to India. But the most dramatic voyage came from a different direction. In 1492, Christopher Columbus, an Italian explorer sailing for Spain, crossed the Atlantic Ocean. He was looking for a western route to Asia. He did not find Asia. He found something the Europeans did not know existed: the Americas. Columbus was immediately interested in gold. When he landed on the Caribbean islands, he noticed that some of the indigenous people wore small gold ornaments. Ornaments are small decorative objects. He asked them where the gold came from. He wrote in his journal that he must find the gold. This moment, one explorer, one question about gold, opened a century of conquest that would transform the entire world. Transform means to change something completely. After Columbus, Spain sent more explorers and soldiers to the Americas. These soldiers were called conquistadors. Conquistador is a Spanish word that means conqueror, someone who defeats and takes control of others. The conquistadors found two great civilizations in the Americas: the Aztec Empire in Mexico and the Inca Empire in South America. Both civilizations had large amounts of gold. In 1519, Hernán Cortés landed in Mexico with just 500 soldiers. The Aztec Empire had millions of people and a mighty army. By any logical calculation, Cortés should have failed. But he was ruthless and strategic. Ruthless means having no pity or mercy. Strategic means carefully planning actions to achieve a goal. Cortés used alliances with local peoples who resented Aztec rule. He used horses and guns, which the Aztecs had never seen before. And he used deception, tricking the Aztec Emperor Montezuma into meeting peacefully, before taking him prisoner. By 1521, the Aztec Empire had fallen. The Spanish melted down Aztec gold art, sacred objects, beautiful jewelry, ceremonial items of great cultural value, and turned them into gold bars. They shipped the gold back to Spain. An enormous amount of art and history was destroyed. In 1532, Francisco Pizarro did the same to the Inca Empire in Peru. The Inca Emperor Atahualpa offered Cortés a ransom to buy his freedom. A ransom is a payment made to release someone from captivity. Atahualpa offered to fill an entire room with gold. Pizarro accepted the gold, and then executed Atahualpa anyway. Between 1500 and 1650, Spain shipped over 180 tons of gold from the Americas to Europe. A ton is about 907 kilograms. This was wealth on a scale Europe had never seen. But this gold did not make Spain stronger forever. It caused massive inflation. Too much gold flooded the European economy, driving up prices everywhere. Spain became dependent on American gold instead of building its own industries. Industries are systems of producing goods and services. When the gold finally ran out, Spain's economy collapsed. Greed, it turned out, was not a strategy. It was a trap. For centuries, gold and silver coins were money. But carrying heavy bags of coins was inconvenient, uncomfortable, and impractical. So, banks began offering paper receipts. A receipt is a written document that proves you have paid for something or that you own something. These paper receipts said, "This paper is worth X amount of gold. Come to our bank and we will give you the gold." Gradually, people started using these paper receipts as money without collecting the actual gold. This was the beginning of paper money. But there was a risk. Banks sometimes printed more paper receipts than they had gold. This was like writing a check for money you do not have. If everyone came to the bank at the same time to collect their gold, it's a bank run. If everyone came to the bank at the same time to collect their gold, the system would collapse. To solve this problem, governments began creating what is called the gold standard. The gold standard is a monetary system, a system for organizing money, in which a country's paper money is directly linked to a fixed amount of gold. Fixed means set and unchanging. Great Britain officially adopted the gold standard in 1821. The United States followed in 1879. Under this system, you could walk into a bank with a US dollar bill and exchange it for real gold. The dollar had a guaranteed gold value. Guaranteed means promised and certain. The gold standard brought enormous stability to international trade. Countries could trust each other's currencies because each currency was backed by real gold. Backed means supported or guaranteed by something real and valuable. For the first time in history, the global economy had a common foundation, and that foundation was gold. The 19th century brought something new to the story of gold. Ordinary people. Not kings, not emperors, not conquistadors, just ordinary men and women dreaming of a better life. On January 24th, 1848, a man named James Marshall was building a sawmill near Sacramento, California. He looked down into the water channel and saw something shining. He picked it up. It was gold. He tried to keep it secret. He failed. Within a year, over 300,000 people poured into California. This event is called the California Gold Rush. A gold rush means many people quickly move to an area because gold has been found. The 49ers, named because most arrived in 1849, came from everywhere. From the eastern United States, from China, from Chile, from Australia, from Europe. They left their homes, their families, their jobs. They carried picks, shovels, and enormous hope. A pick is a sharp tool used for breaking hard ground. A shovel is a tool for digging. Most of them did not find significant gold. The work was back-breaking, extremely difficult and exhausting. The conditions were brutal. Disease spread in the overcrowded camps. Many men died far from home without finding a single nugget. A nugget is a small, solid lump of gold found in the ground. But the gold rush was not a failure. It transformed California from a remote territory into one of the most populated and economically powerful places in North America. A territory is a region of land. The city of San Francisco grew from a small village of about 1,000 people into a booming city of 36,000 in just 2 years. And California was not alone. There were gold rushes in Australia, 1851, South Africa, 1880s. In the Klondike region of Canada, 1896, and in many other places. Each gold rush followed the same pattern: excitement, migration, hardship, and transformation. Gold did not just enrich individuals, it built entire nations. No country in modern history has had a more complicated relationship with gold than South Africa. In 1886, a farmer named George Harrison was walking across the dry plateau near a small town called Johannesburg. He found gold. Not just a little gold. He had found the Witwatersrand. It was the largest gold deposit ever discovered in the history of the world. The news spread. Within years, Johannesburg transformed into one of the biggest cities in Africa. People poured in from Europe, especially from Britain. Gold companies formed rapidly. The wealth was staggering, an amount so large it is almost impossible to believe. But South Africa's gold was deep underground, far deeper than the placer gold of California. Getting it out required enormous investment in machines and infrastructure. Infrastructure means the basic physical systems a society needs. Only large companies with huge capital could do it. Capital means money used to invest in a business. This meant that ordinary people could not simply pick up gold from a riverbed. The gold belonged to corporations, large companies owned by many investors. The real workers were the local African people, who were paid extremely low wages and forced to live in terrible conditions. The discovery of South African gold also triggered the Second Boer War, a brutal conflict from 1899 to 1902. The British wanted control of the goldfields. The war caused enormous suffering on all sides. Decades later, the apartheid system, a cruel system of racial segregation and oppression, was partly built on the profits of gold mining. The gold of South Africa made some people enormously rich and kept millions of others in poverty. Gold had always come at a cost. In South Africa, that cost was human dignity. The 20th century shook the entire world. Two enormous wars changed everything, including the relationship between gold and money. Wars are expensive, unimaginably expensive. Governments need to pay for soldiers, weapons, ships, airplanes, and food for millions of people. Under the gold standard, a government could only spend as much money as it had gold. But wars cost far more than that. So, one by one, countries abandoned the gold standard during wartime. They printed more paper money than they had gold to support. This caused inflation across Europe and beyond. After World War I, Germany suffered one of the worst inflations in history. The German government printed so much money. People needed wheelbarrows full of cash just to buy a loaf of bread. The German currency, the mark, became almost worthless. This economic chaos helped create the conditions for the rise of Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party. The connection between broken money and political catastrophe is one of the darkest lessons of the 20th century. After World War II, the major world powers met in a small town in New Hampshire, USA, called Bretton Woods. In 1944, they created a new international monetary system. Under the Bretton Woods system, the US dollar became the world's reserve currency. Reserve currency means the currency that countries hold in large quantities and use to do business with each other. And the US dollar was tied to gold. 1 ounce of gold equaled 35 US dollars. All other currencies were tied to the dollar. Gold was still at the center of the world economy. For 25 years after World War II, the Bretton Woods system worked. The world economy grew rapidly. International trade expanded. Countries trusted the US dollar because they trusted that it was backed by American gold. But by the late 1960s, the United States had a problem. The Vietnam War was costing enormous amounts of money. Social programs at home were also expensive. The U.S. was spending far more than it was collecting in taxes. To cover the gap, the government printed more dollars. More dollars existed than the U.S. had gold to support. Countries began to notice. France, under President Charles de Gaulle, started sending dollars back and demanding real gold. The U.S. gold reserves, its stored gold, were draining fast. On August 15, 1971, President Richard Nixon appeared on American television and made an announcement that shocked the world. He said that the United States would no longer exchange dollars for gold. Just like that, the link between the dollar and gold was broken. This moment is called the Nixon shock. After the Nixon shock, the world moved to what is called a fiat currency system. A fiat currency is money that has value simply because the government says it has value, not because it is backed by gold or any physical commodity. The dollar was now just paper. Its value was based on trust in the United States government and economy. Nothing more, nothing less. Gold was no longer official money, but people did not stop wanting it. In fact, they wanted it more than ever. After 1971, gold became something new. It became what investors and economists call a safe haven asset. A safe haven is a place of safety during a storm. An asset is anything that has value and can be owned. The idea is simple. When the world is stable and economies are growing, people invest in stocks, real estate, and businesses. But when there is a crisis, a war, a financial crash, a pandemic, people lose confidence in those investments. Something that has been valuable for 10,000 years. They buy gold. In 1980, during a period of high inflation and global tension, the price of gold reached $850 per ounce, an extraordinary high. In 2008, when the global financial crisis hit, when banks collapsed and economies went into recession, the price of gold surged again. By 2020, during the COVID-19 pandemic, gold crossed $2,000 per ounce for the first time in history. Every time the world feels uncertain, people return to gold. It is as if thousands of years of human instinct comes back to life. Gold does not pay interest. It does not grow like a business. But it does not disappear either. And sometimes, in a frightening world, does not disappear is the most valuable quality of all. Gold in the modern world plays three major roles, and each one tells a different part of its ancient story. The first role is jewelry. Even today, more than half of all the gold mined in the world each year is made into jewelry. India and China are the two largest consumers of gold jewelry. In many cultures, gold jewelry is not just decoration, it is savings. A family's gold necklaces and bracelets represent generations of wealth, stored in a form that is portable, universally recognizable, and impossible to inflate away. The second role is technology. Gold conducts electricity extremely well. Conduct means to allow something, like electricity, to pass through it. It also does not corrode, meaning it does not rust or break down over time, even in tiny amounts. This makes gold essential for electronics. Your smartphone contains small amounts of gold in its circuits. A circuit is a path that electricity travels through. So does your computer, your medical devices, and satellites in space. The global electronics industry uses hundreds of tons of gold every single year. The third role is central banking. Central banks are the official banks of countries. They manage a nation's money supply and financial system. Central banks around the world still hold enormous amounts of gold in their reserves. Reserves are stored supplies kept for future use. The United States holds about 8,000 tons of gold, much of it stored in a famous underground vault at Fort Knox, Kentucky. A vault is a very strong, locked room used to store valuable things. Countries hold gold because, even in a world of fiat currencies, gold provides a foundation of trust. If a country's currency collapses, if people lose all confidence in the paper money, the gold is still there. It is the last line of defense. The story of gold is beautiful, but it has a dark side that we cannot ignore. Modern gold mining causes serious environmental damage. Environmental means relating to the natural world, the land, water, air, and living creatures. Large gold mines tear open enormous holes in the earth. They use toxic chemicals, especially cyanide and mercury, to separate gold from rock. Toxic means poisonous and dangerous. These chemicals can contaminate rivers and groundwater, killing fish and making people sick. In the Amazon rainforest of South America, illegal gold mining, called garimpo in Portuguese, is destroying one of the most important ecosystems on Earth. An ecosystem is a community of living things and the environment they live in. Illegal miners pour mercury directly into rivers, poisoning indigenous communities who depend on that water to survive. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, in Central Africa, armed groups control gold mines and use the profits to fund violent conflicts. This is called conflict gold, or blood gold. Gold mined in war zones where terrible human rights abuses take place. An abuse is cruel or violent treatment of a person. In many countries, artisanal miners, small independent miners working by hand, risk their lives every day in dangerous tunnels for very little pay. They have no safety equipment, no medical support, no rights. For every beautiful gold ring in a jewelry store, there is a story of hard work, risk, and often suffering somewhere far away. That does not mean we should never buy gold, but it means we should know where our gold comes from. Knowledge is the beginning of change. We have traveled a long way in this story, from a shining piece of metal in an ancient river to the vaults of modern central banks, from the temples of Egypt to the smartphones in our pockets, from the dreams of the 49ers to the suffering of miners in the Congo. What does gold really tell us about human beings? Gold is a mirror. A mirror shows you your own face. Gold shows us our own nature, both the beautiful parts and the ugly parts. When we look at gold, we see our love of beauty. We see our desire for security. We see our need to believe in something permanent in a world that is always changing. But we also see our greed. We see our willingness to conquer and destroy to get what we want. We see how power corrupts, how those who have gold often use it to keep others from getting any. Corrupts means slowly make something or someone dishonest and immoral. And yet, the story of gold is not hopeless. It is also a story of human ingenuity. Ingenuity means the ability to solve difficult problems in clever ways. People created coins so that trade could be fair. They created the gold standard so that international commerce could be stable. They created financial systems so that ordinary people could save and plan for the future. Gold began as a gift of nature, something beautiful and rare that humans simply found. But over 10,000 years, we turned it into a language of value, of trust, of power, and of beauty. And like all languages, it reflects everything we are, our highest ideals and our lowest impulses. The story of gold is still being written. New gold is still being pulled from the earth every day. New financial systems are still being debated. New technologies, from digital currencies to green mining methods, are changing the picture. But one thing seems certain. As long as human beings exist, as long as we dream of beauty and security and power, gold will matter. It has been with us since the beginning, and it will be with us for a long, long time to come.